Hi, welcome to the new season of Youth Korner Jeunesse. My name is Emma, and I am joined today by Jade, Brianna, and Vanessa from Laurentian Regional High School. Hi there, and welcome back to Youth Korner. My name is Emma, and today I am joined by 3 students from Laurentian Regional High School. Can I ask, starting with you, can I ask you guys to tell me your first name and your preferred pronouns, please?
So my name is Jade, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, my name is Brianna, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Vanessa, my pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. So today we will be discussing the really unique Secondary 5 course that happens only in this school at Laurentian Regional called Fact and Fiction. So I am a previous student of it, so I do know a little bit about it, but it's also been a long time since I've been part of this class. So I think it's really important to put a bit of a spotlight on the work that you guys do, because it's very influential in this community as well, but it doesn't get a lot of recognition. So with that in mind, can you guys tell me a bit about what you think of the course, just in general? Okay, so we're going to get into the details a bit more afterwards, but I'm really curious about your thoughts. So we're going to start with Vanessa this time.
Yes, well, I'm very happy. Like, some people might disagree, but I'm actually happy that we're getting pushed a lot in our work. Like the big essay we have to write, I'm actually happy because it's preparing us for next year for college, and I think that's important, especially since it's a huge transition. So that's one thing I really am happy that I chose this course for that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that too, and that's something we're going to touch on afterwards as well, because there is a lot of discussion about is this course really hard? Why is it so hard? Why is there so much work? And I think you hit it on the head quite well. So we'll talk about that a bit more afterwards. Brianna, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I kind of agree with Vanessa. Even though I complain about it a lot, there's a lot of work put into it.
Who doesn't?
But I do appreciate the fact that since we're being pushed so hard, when we're going to get to CEGEP or university even, we're going to feel less stressed than maybe our peers around us, our classmates. But another thing I really like about this class is the fact that even though we're a big class of 33 students, I think, I like the fact that since we do so many activities and big projects, we're able to really get to know each other very well and be a close, tight-knit group.
That's a very good point too, and I think as we talk about some of the projects that you guys have done too, I think that will definitely become evident as well. Jade, what about you?
I really like it because we get to all get to bond on Mr. Foreman projects, Mr. Foreman essays. We all get to bond also complaining about those same projects, and I think it's also good that it's realistic for what next year is going to be like with the timestamps and also with all the stuff we have to do. It really helps us picture what next year could look like if we want to go to CEGEP or if we want to do other paths.
That's a really good point, and you're right as well. I spoke to both Mr. Foreman and Ms. Vero, who are the teachers and coordinators of this program. I spoke to them prior to filming today about what their thoughts are on Fact and Fiction, and my exact question to them was, what is Fact and Fiction as a course and as a program to you as the instructors? And both of them spoke about how it's a course that kind of steps outside of the usual curriculum for a Secondary 5 English or history class. It kind of combines the two things together, but it really takes a much more project and research-based focus than what you might get in other classes of the same level. And it really is designed in that way to kind of prepare secondary-bound students for what life is going to be like after graduation, because, especially when you're out in the Laurentians, I know that as a youth in the Laurentians back in the day, it was hard for me to picture what life was going to be like outside of the walls of this building. So I think you guys really hit the nail on the head again with that. So one of the really big projects that Fact and Fiction does every year is the Remembrance Day ceremony. So it is currently January of 2025. You guys did the project back in November 2024. So I'm going to ask you guys a little bit about that, because I don't know how much people realize the work that goes into this as well too. So you each had a role to play, and each of you had a slightly different role to play as well. And out of 20-something students, I believe, in total who partook in this ceremony. So to that end, Jade, we'll start with you this time. So can you tell me what your role or roles were and how you came to get those roles?
So I was part of PowerPoint crew, and I also controlled the main PowerPoint, and I was also a speaker. How I got to be in the PowerPoint crew, it wasn't really like I wanted to, but I started meeting a girl named Sabine, and she's like my best friend now. And she wanted to be in PowerPoint crew, and I was like, and she didn't want to be alone, so I was like, okay, I'll do it with you. And that's how I got to be in PowerPoint crew. And then Ms. Jade saw I was like really dedicated, so I guess she was like, you could control the main thing, and I was like, okay, yay.
Did you feel that that was a pretty big responsibility? Were you at all intimidated by it, or were you completely neutral about it, and then that changed once you were in the auditorium during rehearsals?
Well, it wasn't really like pre-discussed that I was going to be doing the main thing. We just kind of got there, and I just kind of happened. It was a little bit stressful because if I was like the tiniest bit late, or I forgot there was like a black screen between a slide, and like example, like one of the pieces had a voice recording, and if I didn't click it the right amount of times, it wouldn't play, and then that would be really bad, and it would be kind of just awkward. So certain parts like that were stressful. Like certain pieces had certain things that were different from others. Like yours had wind in it, and that was really stressful because I had to make sure it played. There's just small little things like that made it stressful, but the actual idea of doing it wasn't that stressful to me.
That definitely makes sense. But what your job was so critical to the ambiance of the ceremony as well. You know, I was a viewer, I was in the audience, and you would never think that there was all of these little nitpicky details going on, when in reality you have a secondary 5 student in the back of house who is taking care of everything. So I can understand that stress. And you were a presenter as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell me just a little bit about what your presentation was about?
My presentation was about a woman missing her husband who's about to leave for war. It was just about how she feels and how she doesn't know what she's going to do with all this time, and how she grieves someone that's not even dead yet.
That's a very interesting angle, too. I think that's one that people don't often consider when they're thinking about, Remembrance Day. I think we often look at those who have already departed, but we don't really look at it from the perspective of somebody who has to face that reality that maybe somebody they love won't come home. So very interesting. And I did love your piece as well, too. It was a very, very touching piece. Okay, so Brianna, we're going to move to you. So can you tell me a little bit about your roles in the ceremony?
Yeah, I was a speaker, so I had way less things to do than Jade. And my piece was mainly focused around my great-grandmother's story, because when she was, I think it was 13, if I remember, she was stuck on a mountain during World War II in Italy, and she had to take care of her family and such, away from all the bombs and war that was happening. So I mainly focused on her story of going through that, and just knowing that she had to protect her family. And yeah.
That's wonderful too. And so you were speaking from a personal standpoint too.
Yeah.
If I may ask, was your grandmother somebody that you have been able to meet in life, or were you really having to do your research from secondary sources?
Oh no, I was really lucky because we did a similar project about asking our family members stories about war when we were in Sec 2.
Okay.
So she was still alive by then. So I asked her about it, and then she told me this whole story. It was really heartbreaking, and I didn't even know a lot of things. Even my close family, her daughter, didn't know a lot of the things that happened because she didn't really want to talk about it. So I got that information to make it this year. So, but then I also asked people around me, her daughter, about it, to see if she had other things that I could add to it or something.
Okay, so you had both, the primary source and the secondary source to that extent. And that's, one of the things that comes up about Remembrance Day with Fact and Fiction every year is that every class inherently has an underlying theme, and it's not discussed previously, it just kind of happens.
Yeah, it shows up.
It shows up, exactly, and and you can only really identify it after you've seen the ceremony. So it's very interesting. I noticed this year that it really manifested as a theme of communication, and Brianna, I think you got that really well, is that you had that chance to communicate these ideas previously, but you were also able to reapply them into something that was going to be presented to so many people, and to people who have lived similar experiences, because the ceremony is attended by veterans. So I find that very interesting. We'll circle back to that afterwards as well, okay? And Vanessa, can you tell me a little bit about your role?
I was the one that spoke, that presented the In Flanders Fields poem in French.
Okay.
So although I didn't say my speech out loud, the one I created, but I still felt very honored saying the poem. And I was also a guest coordinator. So we brought in the veterans, like showed them where they could like sit, the parents as well. We got the chance to talk to them a little bit before the ceremony, which that was actually quite fun too.
Yeah.
They were all very, very nice, and I loved my experience. It was really fun.
Good, and that is that's something that kind of unifies all fact and fiction graduates as well, is that the veterans of the community are very, very grateful for this ceremony every year, and they will tell you to your face, and they will remember you later in life too. They they will recognize you at times. So I'm glad that you got to have that experience, especially to speak to them before the ceremony as well, to have that opportunity to kind of, you know, build a connection on a blank slate, and then also to talk to them afterwards too. Do you remember any commentary that you got from them afterwards?
Well, afterwards, we didn't really have much time to talk to them because, like, the bell rang. We all had to go.
Yes, that's true.
Like on the bus. But before, I remember them saying how much, like, every year they love our ceremony every single year, and I was honored to be part of it this year too, and to talk to them before. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah.
And I wanted to add on to Vanessa, because us, you know, so we've been here since Sec 1. We saw it every year.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then to be in Sec 5 and really realizing how, like, big this actually was. Like, it was really, like, past just our school. We really saw the impact of the veterans really, like, liking it, and we just felt a part of something bigger.
Good, and you definitely were as well. So one of my questions for you guys is kind of about the rehearsal period as well, because that's one thing that I don't think a lot of your peers might realize, is that, you know, yes, you guys are missing for about almost a week in November, but they don't really know what exactly it is that you're doing, other than it's about the Remembrance Day ceremony. So I would love to ask you guys a little bit about what rehearsal was like. So the main thing I would like to know is, what kind of change did you see in yourselves and in your classmates from the very first hour that you were in the auditorium to the very first presentation that you guys did? Because I can imagine that was a pretty drastic emotional and academic change, even though it only happened over the course of 3 to 4 days. So whoever wants to answer that, if you can come up with that right off the top of your head.
It was kind of like, oh, okay, like this is real. This is actually happening, and we're gonna speak in front of like 800 people, because we had 2 ceremonies, one for the younger kids, and then, you know, the real deal. And just like practicing our poems and speaking them out loud and going through like all the kinks and everything was just like, it just felt really real, like, and it was kind of like eye-opening in a way, and also a lot of work and kind of mentally draining near the end. I bet.
Yeah, I remember the first day, I think it was like either Wednesday or Tuesday before, because the ceremony's on Friday. We came in, and then, you know, we're going one by one, just doing it for the first time on the podium with the microphone, and it's actually kind of crazy to hear your voice echo back to you.
So loud, yeah.
Oh
like when you're on stage on a podium with a bright light in your face. It's a different feeling, and it's really like interesting to see how the first time, like, hearing everybody had like problems, like issues getting used to it. So some people were like talking like this, or some people were like really like this, you know. But then at the end, like when our first run through, or even like our last one, we really saw like how everybody improved and felt more confident going into and saying their piece, like knowing it, and also not hearing like Ms. Vero saying "talk louder." So, yeah.
But no, it's a very real struggle too. If you've never spent time presenting in front of people or performing or anything like that, it's kind of hard to gauge how, I mean, even doing this podcast as well too, even I find myself sometimes with the microphone, am I holding it too close? Am I holding it too far? So there's a lot of background thought that goes on in those moments too.
Yeah, well, one thing I noticed, it wasn't really for me because my poem was quite short, like I could memorize it like off the top of my head. One thing I found really like impressive for like the rest of my classmates was how like they memorized their piece by heart. Like it was long, it was detailed, and like everyone knew it by heart. And I was really like impressed. Like I was like, at the end, it was actually pretty good. I was like, because they didn't have to read their paper or anything. It was actually really good.
Well, that's true too. I guess I hadn't really considered that because you have the podium in front of you, but
and it's long.
You guys,
their pieces can be long.
Well, that's it too.
And
you guys as well. There's a certain amount of like direction that goes on with how you're supposed to present yourself at the podium too. Like, what are you guys really supposed to do while you're up there, particularly from when you get on the stage to when you leave? Like, what does that process look like, and what were the expectations on you?
Well, I remember that some people, since they're kind of short, they had to have like a little step, a little stool.
And we're going to talk about the infamous stool afterwards.
Not looking at anybody, but some people like had to like put it like when it was dark, like it was the whole calculation.
Yeah, quietly, because if you slam it,
yeah, because it's a piece of wood, you know, like, and it's anyway. So they had that. There was many calculations involved, lots of planning. Also, when we went to speak, we had to like look forward and everything, and not look down. And then we had to place also our microphones because it was like a standing thing. Cool. So we had to place it like near our mouth, but not too close. And since some people were taller or like shorter, you had to a lot of calculations. Yeah. And then when you finish your piece, where you just want to like run off stage or like be done with it, you have to like finish, look up to the light where our friend Ariel was the one like placing the light, look at her with the light and try not to like look like that, try to just be like
professional.
It'll close and then you can leave. And it was kind of funny because one of our classmates, who I won't name, every time he would look at it, he would always be like,
oh my god. But what was also hard is like, the wooden thing, right? I had to stand on it. But I had to make sure not to place it too far so I wouldn't be like this to the mic, or not to place it too close, because then it's like half my feet are also like remember precisely where to put it. And then like I think I was on before like one of the tallest people, so I have to like really move down the mic, and it's so stressful.
Yeah, and also I remember with we couldn't see our paper because at first when we were first practicing we didn't know it as much, and since the lighting is more towards you and the podium is at an angle, no light goes onto your paper.
So you really got
so you couldn't see what it said. So the first couple practices, I was just guessing what I was saying. Really,
I was able to see what was said on my paper.
I think that's just because you're short, or maybe it was because of your stool.
Okay, then that brings us to the infamous Remembrance Day ceremony stool, which was made in 2015, November of 2015. I was actually the first person to sign it. So did all three of you sign the stool?
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. Because I feel like that's a rite of passage any fact and fiction student has to go through now. But yes, that stool, if only we had it here and if only we were able to show it on camera.
I think
but
it's probably over there.
It's probably,
somewhere.
It lives somewhere in this room. But that is an artifact in and of itself now too. So you guys are permanently immortalized. It is. It's 10 years old. Well, it'll be 10 years old in November. But yeah, so you guys are not only going to be immortalized on the walls in the photo gallery, graduate photo gallery, you are also immortalized on the Remembrance Day Fact and Fiction stool. Okay, so from here, I would really, really like to ask you guys a little bit about, there was a couple of times you guys mentioned the kind of the mental fatigue that came from this as well. How were you guys feeling at different points? Like, was there ever a point where you guys kind of were thinking to yourselves, oh my God, like everything else is kind of a blur and I can only exist right in this moment? Because a lot of people who I've spoken to previously about this ceremony have said that every now and then they feel like they've just woken up in the middle of doing their speech or in the middle of Q to Q, anything like that. And I can see Jade, you had a particular experience with Q to Q being the PowerPoint.
I have war flashbacks every time I think about the Q to Qs. So I'm the main PowerPoint person, but I'm also a speaker who has to leave my spot and go. The Q to Qs. It's the first picture and the last picture. The first line.
Explain what it means, because they probably don't know.
Oh, okay. So basically, a Q to Q is like a shortened version of what the ceremony is actually like. So just it gets like a run through of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first line and the last line of your piece. So by the time it was this person, Katrina, and then it's me, right? And I don't even realize it until like I see her name. I'm like, oh God. So we're all the way at the back, not from like maybe like 12 rows. So I have to go not through the first one because they're filming. I have to go through like the second or third one, squat down because they're filming, and then I have to go and I have to run so I can make it to my Q to Q. But don't forget, I have to place my stool and my microphone. So by the time it says my name, I'm not even there because I'm just placing my stuff. And then I say like my poem's not even like a minute 30 long. So I say my first line and then my second line, and then it's all over. Like all
you run
that
back.
work
And then you have to run all the way
for
back.
nothing, basically.
Yeah, so you have a very particular experience with that. What about you?
Well, I just find it really funny because every time we'd see Jade
Yeah,
run
you just
across,
see, oh, it's gonna be
and then we
her.
see Katrina's name, and we're like, oh, Jade, it's gonna be
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
It's like full on sprinting.
And it's a big room too. Like I don't know
Yeah, there's a lot of
how many
spots.
of the listeners have been in that room before, but it's a big room, and it doesn't necessarily seem like it when you first walk in because it's so dark and there's so many chairs. But as you well know, you got to really sprint to get from one end to the other, especially if you are doing Q to Q. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine I think I actually saw you do it a couple of times too.
But also, like, the PowerPoint Q to Q, it's the first line with the first picture and the second line, or the last line with the last picture. And so that's also hard because you have to, like, scroll to the first picture, and then you have to scroll, like, imagine that person has, like, 30 pictures. You have to scroll all the way down to the last one. That was also stressful.
Yeah, because in our pieces, like, there's a bunch of different photos that they have to go through while we say, like, different, like, parts of it, so it, like, matches up, gives a little ambiance. But since you're only saying the first line and the last line, so you're just, like, going through pictures of, like, forest, water, like, clouds, unicorns, whatever. So you got to do that.
Yeah.
What about you?
My Q to Q was easy peasy. I didn't have any problem with that. I was sitting right in the front watching everyone. But I'd say maybe like when guests started to come in to sit down, we were only 3, like, and everyone came all at once.
Oh boy.
And then it kind of started little fights because the 2 first rows were for veterans, and even if there was papers,
I
no
do
one
remember
respected
that.
that. So I was like, guys, can you please just go in the back? And they would all get mad at me, but like, it's not my fault, you know, like.
The parents?
Yeah, the parents, even like we would show like, oh, in this row please, and they'd sit down if they'd listen, but some of them didn't really like.
That's true.
see
You
the
guys handled
papers.
that really, really well because I don't think
Yeah.
anybody else noticed that was happening
Yeah.
because
That was-
At all.
well, there
I
you go.
did. I was
I-
right there
You guys
when
were in
the
the back
parents.
though, but like
No.
I don't know.
I was there, and you were like, "Oh, guys."
Because it wasn't just one parent. Like, as soon as one parent would move, like, I'd look away, and then there would be, like, 10 more people sitting in that row that was reserved. I was like, what?
Well, I think that's a reality with the guest coordinator
Yeah.
task as well.
We
too,
were just
that
not
isn't
enough
really
people, like,
exactly.
there, yeah.
I can definitely imagine that can be difficult because you guys mentioned, you do 2 ceremonies. The first one is Sec 1, Sec 2, or is it all the way to Sec 3?
Sec 1 and Sec 2, and
Yeah.
then the other students, like what is it?
Oh,
the
3, 4,
work
5.
program in them.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And then it's 3, 4, 5 and veterans.
And parents.
And parents and veterans, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the second one is, like you guys said, the real deal as well. There's a lot of pressure on that one too.
Yeah.
And what about right at the beginning as well? You guys all you would do O Canada. You
I
had
forgot about
you
that.
had the veterans
Canada.
marching it. That's true. I guess you didn't. You would have had to stay
I
in the
got
back.
the privilege of staying in the back.
We were all singing.
Yeah. Did you guys have to rehearse that beforehand, or?
Yeah, I think we kind of all knew O Canada by heart,
I
but
didn't.
Oh.
0%.
Well, she did it.
Really?
I think I was actually the one that made us all like practice in class, because like 2 weeks before our thing was our thing was happening, Miss was like, "Oh, we're gonna sing O Canada in front, like the beginning of the ceremony," and everybody's like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna practice." She's like, "Do you not know O Canada?" No, I do not know O Canada. I went to a French school. Who doesn't care about O Canada? Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
you and I have
French.
spoken about that previously as well, because you have a background in the francophone school system, and you had mentioned to me that you didn't really do anything for Remembrance Day ceremony.
Yeah.
I was very surprised by that too.
Yeah, I went to French elementary school,
Okay.
and then I came here in Sec 1 for a change. But I've never, like, we've maybe talked about Le Jour du Souvenir, but we never, like, did anything for Remembrance Day. Like, it was all new to
Interesting.
me. Like, when we came here in Sec 1, and then there was the ceremony that was, like, during the bubble year, so it was a video that was, like, live. But to see that, like, the whole day was dedicated to this, I was like, oh.
yeah,
Like,
I find that crazy.
I
Because LES, my elementary school was English. I remember every year, like, we had to sit in the gym, there'd be a
That's true.
ceremony.
I went to
Mhm,
LES
yeah.
as
Yeah,
well, and
like
that it was a
ceremonies
pretty
every
big
year.
deal. Yeah.
for me.
And Jade, what about you? Like, did you have Remembrance Day ceremonies in
Yeah,
elementary
I
school?
went to LES too.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
And it was
Okay.
really cool because like some of the like monitors were also veterans.
That's
And you
true.
didn't get to
true.
you didn't get to
That's
find that
true.
out. Like
Wasn't
you
Miss-
didn't know.
Yeah.
Miss Barbara.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miss
You didn't
Barbara
know
was
until
one
like the
of
actual
them.
ceremony, and then you see them in like their uniform with all their medals, and you're like, oh my god, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it kind of gives you a bit of a different perspective on the people that you've grown up around as well too, because it's not necessarily something that people would just disclose as well. And I think that the Remembrance Day ceremony, especially the one that you guys did this year with that theme of communication, really touches on that reality that because of movies and TV shows and this idea of the grandeur of wartime, it kind of looks at war in a very in-your-face way. But you guys all did presentations in such a way, and you met these people face to face,
Yeah.
as the guest coordinator, where you kind of realize it's like these are normal people in their day-to-day life. Like they're not immediately going to introduce themselves as somebody who has seen war firsthand or been affected by it. And so the fact that you guys did such a good job at looking at it from the perspective of people that are kind of having to seek those answers from other people, whether it's within your family or outside of it, because it's not in your day-to-day life. I found that very, very interesting. So I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I had actually forgotten about that too. But that's very interesting. So one of my we're gonna wrap up pretty soon. One of my favorite questions to have asked you guys previously, as well as we were preparing for this, was about kind of the in-between moments and kind of the funny stuff. We talked a little bit about Jade having to run up and down, but that was for a very specific purpose too, and you had such an important job that running, while funny, was also very critical to the ceremony itself. So I want to ask you guys about little things that were going on behind the scenes that with while also respecting the privacy of your classmates as well. With the understanding that with the bonding comes a certain amount of comedy, which is a little odd in the face of the kind of the solemn nature of the ceremony. But when you spend a week in the auditorium together, things are going to happen. So I'll start with Vanessa.
Yes. Well, one thing I really remember is when one of our classmates, because let me start from the beginning. There's two staircases to get onto the stage, and it's pitch black in there. Like there was a light, but we couldn't find the switch, so it was like pitch black. And one of our classmates went down those stairs after his piece, and like completely fell down the stairs, and I was sitting right there, and then you just hear boom, dong, dong, dong. I was like, oh my god, we look over, and like he's just sitting there, and we went up to help him, because like we didn't know if he hurt his ankle or something, But yeah, it was kind of funny in a way. Like I kind of
You feel bad for laughing, but it's something that sticks in your memory.
After that, we found the light because that was the morning of I think it was the morning of
it was the morning of the ceremony.
Ceremony. It was Friday.
It,
so it wasn't during the ceremony.
No, it wasn't during. It was the practice. But it was still like the day of, and we were like, oh, like if he actually hurt himself, like it was done for the ceremony.
Yeah,
he was okay. And
he was all fine. He was all good. That's why we can laugh about it now.
Yeah, for the rest of the day, people kept going up to him saying like, oh, is your ankle okay? Are you okay? And then he was like, how do you know about
How do you know about it?
And we're like, oh,
it's spread really
been talking about it, so he was so embarrassed, but it was really funny.
Yeah.
But another thing I remember, like I just remember now, was we had like dedicated people who were photographers, and they had to like take pictures of the process, very aesthetic photos. This one person, who I won't name, that I have beef with, kept taking pictures of the most randomest moments, like
super close up.
Like one time I was like giving him a pencil, and then he took a photo of me giving him a pencil.
It's in the moments,
It's and then he would take just random moments that I would just take photos of. But so that was annoying. But it was whatever. I'm sure they turned out as great photos. Also,
memories.
Yeah. Ooh, and also when we were setting up like the big camera to video the whole thing, like before the ceremony, Ms. Vero and Mr. Foreman came, and then we took like a big group pictures, like all little groups together, and it was really, really fun.
Nice. I love that. That's a good thing to remember. What about you, Jade?
I think it's when we had to stay after school for one of the nights, and we grew, like the people who stayed after school kind of bonded even more because we were having like a massive gossip session, because at that time my life was kind of like this, and so I started talking about everything that was going on in it, and they were like, oh my god, and so like we all bonded and they were like, that's crazy, and I was like, I know it's crazy. I was trying to think,
but that's pretty cool though, because you got to experience, you were in a professional setting, but you also got to experience the very human side of a professional experience as well,
because Miss Vero dance.
that too seeing Miss Vero dance is always very, very special, and we love you, Miss Vero, for all your dance moves.
Yes,
so we're gonna wrap up. I've got one last little question for you guys, and it's kind of the biggest one. We started this episode talking about what the purpose of Fact and Fiction was, and why it's designed the way it is. Do you guys feel that it is, because the course is ongoing, you guys haven't graduated just yet, but do you guys feel that you are getting closer to being prepared for what comes next, be it CEGEP, be it trade school, or be it university? And how do you feel that change has happened?
I feel personally already too prepared. Like I've done enough work.
Yeah. Like I'm not even stressed about next year.
No, seriously, like at this point there's so much work we have done that I'm over it. I just, we've done so much. I feel prepared.
I suppose that's better than feeling like you have no idea what's going on.
I don't feel like I could be more prepared. Like I'm going to be more prepared because the work just keeps on coming.
Yeah.
But I could go over it now, I feel like,
Good. That's good. It's good to have that confidence beforehand, because I definitely didn't when I was at your age. So I'm glad to see that the course is doing its job. Do either of you have some? Yeah.
I'm ready for like the work aspect of it, but the people aspect, going from such a tiny bubble of people to like 1,000 or more people.
That's a very good point.
Our school's like just 581 students.
It's a small school.
And then we're going to 6,000.
That is like something I guess we're not prepared for, since we're so used to the small bubble of like the same people, but when you go to CEGEP, it's not the same reality as it is here.
No, and that's a very, very good point, and I think that's why Fact and Fiction does such a good job, is that all of you are kind of coming into this program from different backgrounds as well too. Like you might not have had any classes together previously before taking this class together, and that is something that you will experience throughout your post-secondary careers, whatever it is that you choose to do. Laurentian Regional High School students always kind of orbit each other in adulthood too. So the people that you're meeting in this program, chances are you're going to meet again later in life, and if it's not them, it's people very similar to them and people that make you think of them. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is a very real issue. And finally, last but not least,
I don't know what else to add, but I'd say like because like I talked about this before, but like at the beginning of the podcast, but it also really helps us manage our time. Oh my God, Sec 4, I was like procrastinating every night. I start my homework at 9 p.m. even though I get home at 4. Like I would procrastinate so much, but like the amount of workload we have has forced me to like do my work, and now I actually have like a little bit of free time.
And a
You know what I
better
mean?
sleep schedule.
And a way better sleep schedule.
Good. I'm so glad to
awake
hear
now.
that. It means that it's working. It means that the program style
I'm
is
actually really
working.
happy like with the change, and yeah.
Good. Well, thank you guys for talking with me today. This was a long time coming, but I was really, really happy to get to chat with you guys. I think this is a brilliant first episode. I'm really glad that we got the chance to shine a spotlight, not just on LRHS, but also on fact and fiction. So thank you guys for coming in today.
Thank you for having
Yes,
us.
it was very fun.
And
Yes.
thank you for joining us on Youth Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you.